This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. So, hello, I'm Cheyenne Severin, and I just realized I didn't change my name, so let me do that. And this is Phaedra Salerno, and today we're going to be doing a little pamphlet review. So, this is just a way to evaluate our resources and really examine them because, you go to events all the time and they're handing out a bunch of different pamphlets, and you don't really get a chance to be like, okay, well, what do these pamphlets actually offer me, and what is the quality of what I'm consuming? Because, this is just a part of the industry, or not even just the substance misuse industry. It's a part of a lot of different things where we're trying to spread awareness, but people don't actually examine the pamphlets in depth, which is what we're doing today. I'm so sorry. Phaedra's name to Cheyenne. How do I not do that? Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's actually just Phaedra. Okay, let me see. Rename myself. There we go. We fixed it. So, the backstory behind this is behind me pamphlets. These are some pamphlets that we got going to a local event at one of the high schools in Brick Township, where they were just addressing substance misuse in the middle of the school year for parents and students. And the Ocean County Health Department had a table where they were offering a few different pamphlets. I have 8 here, but we chose 4 to examine today in order of what we'll be going through. We have Kratom, which I don't think I'm pronouncing right. We will pull these up on the screen, so it won't just be me flashing a pamphlet in your face that you can't read. Kratom, imported addiction, which I'd never heard of this before, so we both were like, we should probably cover that one because I've never even heard of it. Delta 8 THC, don't be in the dark about weed light, which I thought was really interesting because there were some legal ramifications going on with the artificial weed. So I wanted to see what we were doing with that. And then we have a common one for the high schools, vaping and e-cigarettes, how they affect the body. So I want to go through. And then social hosting, something that we all hear about, but don't talk about in depth too much. So I want to see what this pamphlet's take on social hosting is. So we need to find out who's responsible for underage drinking. And now I'm going to try to share my screen and we'll see how that goes. So there we go. So obviously, because it's a PDF, it won't be in order. So I'm going to try to go through this in order of how it actually appears in the pamphlet. And I'm going to be reading from my physical pamphlets that I have. So does it look okay, Phaedra?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So we have Kratom, and the thing on the right is the title, I don't know what to call it, slide page. Imported addiction, and we have a bunch of different, I'm guessing cartridges or something, the bags that they sell them in. Like I said, I have no idea what this is. So the first page that they have in the actual pamphlet is this one on the bottom left. They have, what does it look like? Kratom is most often found in the form of dried leaves. The leaves are chewed, smoked, brewed in tea, or ground and packaged in the capsules. Just half of a leaf can produce noticeable effects when ingested. The drug may also be found in a more powerful liquid or cake extract form. That's interesting. Many mood-altering herbal supplements also claim to contain kratom. Oh, that's scary. Next we have, actually it's just right along here. So then you go into what are the effects of kratom, and the effects are similar to those of opiates. I don't think I said that right, of which the plant is related. In very small doses, it usually improves alertness or adds a temporary boost of energy, while larger doses induce euphoria, and tranquilizing effects. While the general effect of taking kratom is a relatively mild alteration of the mental state, the effects vary dramatically and are unpredictable based on dosage. Depending on the size of the dose, effects begin to become apparent after about 15 minutes and last several hours. Ew. Researchers are still attempting to determine exactly which of the chemicals in kratom are most active. It is certain that, among others, it contains 3 main alkaloids, mitragynine, mitraphyline, and 7 hydro... God, that, one or more of which probably produce its distinctive effects. When the active alkaloid is isolated, scientists will be better prepared to predict its long and short-term effects on the mind and body. Oh, so we're not even like super aware of what this does yet. There are a number of disturbing known side effects connected with kratom use. Most occur when the drug is taken in heavily or totally excessive doses. The most common short-term effects are vomiting and nausea, in addition to the obvious temporary impairment of mental and motor functions resulting from body tranquilization. Other effects include constipation, darkening of the skin, anorexia, and insomnia. Just like other opiates, such as heroin and morphine, kratom is addictive. Users can easily become dependent with frequent use. So this can actually cause anorexia? Like that is awful. Okay, so lack of research. Because our understanding of kratom's effects, I'm realizing I'm not scrolling, so you guys didn't get to see. Oh no, it's fine. Oop. Because of our understanding of kratom's effects is largely based on anecdotal evidence, it may well affect the mind and body in ways that we are not yet aware of. While careful study continues in laboratories and in animal tests, a far more dangerous experiment is also underway in bodies of those who abuse kratom. Oh, I don't like that. Diction abuse. Kratom recreationally. It is highly irresponsible to allow this substance to have free course in the body without knowing fully what long-lasting damage it can cause. The fact that many countries, including Thailand, have made it illegal is a strong indicator that kratom is hazardous. Okay, so then we're going into what you get is not always what you think. What? Because of its legal status, kratom is widely available for purchase on the internet and in disreputable retail stores. Many of these products claim to contain kratom extract in varying doses. One such product, Krypton Kratom, was laced with a powerful opioid. Oh, there's more. Analgesic kicker. That resulted in at least 9 overdose deaths in 1 year alone. Taking recreational drugs, whether legal or not, is dangerous and risky. You never know exactly what it is you're getting or what toll the drug will take on your body. So, word to the wise, no form of drug abuse, again, I don't like that diction, comes without consequences. And in the case of kratom, there are plenty of reasons to avoid it. The risk of addiction is very real, and the more kratom a person uses, the higher dose he or she needs in order to enjoy the same effects. So, tolerance. The fact that the drug is not yet illegal in the US is not an endorsement of its safety, but rather an acknowledgement that there is not enough known about the drug to warrant the government's involvement. And then you have this picture of what might be a guy experiencing an overdose. Taking kratom, the bottom quote, is just as dangerous as taking a street drug, and those who make the choice to experiment with it play a dangerous game with their health, their future, or even their lives. That's the bottom. So, Phaedra, before we move on to the final little details of the packet, what are you thinking so far? How do we feel about kratom?
Well, it seems that kratom is dangerous and that we should really promote more awareness about its effects, especially because it's not illegal in the United States yet. People may think that it's safe to use. And I think this might also tie in with our discussion of Delta 8. But now that marijuana is being legalized in many U.S. states, people tend to think that it is not dangerous when in reality it often is.
Something that I'd heard before is like the normalization of marijuana. And I think this kind of like goes into that because it's not a 1-to-1, obviously, but just reading through this, it sounds kind of like marijuana a little bit. So it's just strange. So especially because what I'm learning is you see this a lot. So with drugs like this, like the nicotine and the vaping and everything, or like the Delta 8, like we're going to talk about, when something's new, you don't know the effects and like how bad something is, but it's still being pushed out because it's not in a state where it's illegal yet. So to have this and just hear that it's being like pushed out, and they use the term like disreputable like retail stores, I think is like it's scary. I hate how they do that, which is such a non-eloquent way to put it, but that it's just they take the opportunity before something is like declared as like, oh, hey, we figured out that this is actually dangerous. They take that opportunity to push it out as much as they can before they figure out like, hey, there's a problem with this. So just something to look out for, because I know I hadn't heard of it before I looked at this pamphlet.
I hadn't either, and I'm sure some of the reason that they're pushing it is so that people will take other drugs as well, like heroin and cocaine, and that'll just feed into this industry more.
What are you thinking of the pamphlet itself so far?
Well, I think some of it could definitely be improved, especially with the parts where they mention drug abuse. But overall, I feel like it is informative and does warn about the dangers of kratom.
I feel like towards the end, like a word to the wise, or like the quote on the bottom is like, they're using scare tactics, which can be effective, but also, I don't know, it's just strange to see. Like, I feel like I'm learning more about the different tactics that they take with these things. I understand what they're going for with like the sideways, like mood altering symptoms, vomiting and nausea, and risk of addiction, but it's also kind of hard to read.
Yeah, especially with that font, even if it were oriented horizontally, I still think it would be a bit challenging to read just because that font is quite illegible.
I do like the images though. Again, with the scare tactics, you see the guy on the right. That's a major point there. I do like how they show off the pill form though, and the like leaves, I think those are. Yeah. I think the title thing that I mentioned earlier, all the way on the right, that it does a nice job of showing off like the different products, because I know I wouldn't know what to look for, especially because I hadn't heard of this before, like I said earlier. So then on the back, we go into foreign substance. Kratom, a drug of abuse, okay, that has been popular in Southeast Asia, is relatively new to the United States. Well, okay, that makes sense. While the FDA does not currently impose any restrictions on its growth, sale, or consumption, kratom is still a potentially dangerous drug that must be treated with care and never abused. Many countries categorize kratom as a controlled substance, placing it roughly at the level of marijuana, which makes sense because it's sort of reminiscent of that. It produces mood-altering symptoms and is known to be addictive and damaging in heavy doses, but perhaps most importantly, a full scientific investigation of its makeup and effects on the body has not yet been completed. Those who assume that it is safe to enjoy the effects of kratom on a recreational basis choose to expose their body and brain to a force that is not yet understood and has the potential to damage them in ways that doctors are not yet aware of. So what is kratom? The kratom tree is native to Southeast Asia, mainly Thailand and Malaysia. Its active chemicals are concentrated in its large green leaves, which are picked, dried, and sold. In 1943, the Thai government not only prohibited use of the drug, so it's new here, but this has been outlawed for a while. The Thai government not only prohibited use of the drug, but also called for the destruction of all existing kratom trees. Because the tree naturally grows in the country, however, it has not been possible to eradicate it. Today, kratom products can be readily found in head shops and online stores. So then I have to wonder, like, what other benefits are there to the kratom tree? Like, are there any? If they're just trying to eradicate all of the trees. So what is it called? Because kratom is new to the United States, it has not yet acquired any English street names. In Southeast Asia, it's referred to as I'm not even going to try to pronounce those, but there are some street names for the Southeast Asia. And then there's a quote at the bottom for those who assume that it is safe to enjoy the effects of kratom on a recreational basis. Oh, okay, well, I already read that. So then you have resources, which are good. I always like to see the resources included. Hello, Gemma. You got to go to intheknowzone.com for more information on substance abuse. Oh boy. Increase your knowledge using the information, statistics, images, and links. Test your understanding with a quick quiz. Don't stay in the dark, get in the know. Which, this is from 2011. So I have to wonder if there have been any updates on this situation. Oh my God, there are dogs on the table. Bye.
Oh, is that a dachshund, Cheyenne?
That is a dachshund. Let me see. So, okay. I can kind of see now why they're using substance abuse, Because I thought this was like a more recent pamphlet until I saw the copyright for 2011 from Education Specialty Publishing. But I don't know how recent the move to substance misuse has been, but that it makes sense for it to be a little outdated now. Not that it's okay, but you learn. So I think the biggest thing for me right now is the kratom trees, just like trying to destroy all of them. That's so strange.
Yeah, and I think what is a little strange is that this page where it talks about the origins of kratom didn't come before the other parts where they were talking about its effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm assuming I know how to read a pamphlet at this point in my life. It's like in the back. I don't know if you can see. Unless
that does. I don't know about you, but that seems kind of strange to me because usually, when you're introduced to a new topic and say an article or something, they would provide a definition and the origins, and then move into how it is used.
Mm-hmm. They might. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know how to read a pamphlet. But yeah, I mean, at least they include it. But it is strange that it's like on the back, assuming that I am reading this correctly. I do want to know if they have any street names as of right now. But I'm not sure. Because like I said, this is outdated. What do you rate this pamphlet out of 10, Phaedra? How are we feeling?
I'd say I'd rate this maybe like a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10 pamphlet. You don't jive with the pamphlet?
Well, I feel like the way it's set up is kind of strange. It's especially with the text going vertically, like we mentioned a few minutes ago. I think that it is kind of hard to read, and it may distract from the message. And I mean, this definitely has to do with the fact that it's an older pamphlet, probably, but the drug abuse part of it, just with the negative connotation. And then the cover of the pamphlet is I don't know if the correct word is like it, but I think it does a good job of it mentions one of the brands of kratom, and it shows how it might be packaged. So I think it does provide some awareness for that as well.
Mm-hmm. It is very eye-catching, yeah. I will say they do a good job with the graphic design. Like besides the weird font for the side text and the imported addiction, it's a nice looking pamphlet. Like it's professional. It makes me want, like it did catch my eye when I saw it, and I was like, oh, I do want to learn more about kratom. But moving on to Delta 8 THC, which is another thing that not a lot of people know about or know too much about if they do know what it is. So don't be in the dark about weed light, which I had not heard that term for it before, but it's looking slick so far. I'm enjoying the color scheme. But the first thing that we learn about with this is it safe? So I don't know. I want to know, is it safe? So, okay. Even though Delta 8 is supposedly milder than Delta 9, this refers to the mind-altering effects, not the overall safety of the substance. Okay. Am I reading this wrong? Let's see. Yeah, okay. I must be reading this wrong because it seems like the definitions are on the back. And I feel like that is such a weird way for this to be structured. So let's start in the back. So what is Delta 8, word I can't pronounce, THC? So tetrahydrocannabinol, okay. Marijuana, cannabis sativa, has thousands of chemicals, but the one that gets the most attention is Delta 9. Okay, I just tried to pronounce that. Commonly referred to as THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. Okay. This is the chemical that produces marijuana's mind-altering effects, and there's plenty of it in just one marijuana leaf. Okay. In most places, though, THC is legal, and even though some of the states have started legalizing marijuana for recreational use, it remains a banned substance in about 70% of the U.S. What is this pamphlet from? This one's from last year, so I don't know if that's even still accurate now. Recently, a lesser-known form of THC called Delta-8 has started to become more popular. This form of THC is found in much smaller percentages than Delta-9 THC and has less intense mind-altering effects, giving it the nickname weed light. Oh, that's where that comes from. While it was once considered a byproduct of creating Delta-9 products, companies involved in selling THC-related substances have taken advantage of legal loopholes to market Delta-8 as a hemp-based pain reliever or anxiety reducer. Currently, the FDA does not recognize Delta-8 for any medicinal purposes, but that hasn't stopped its spread as an edible or smokable option for those in the states that have not legalized marijuana. So, yeah, this is a way to get around like the Delta-9 regulations because it's harder since it's like artificial. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. Although its safety and legality are still very much in question, head shops, vape stores, and even places like gas stations are looking to cash in on Delta-8's questionable legal status to sell you an untested and unapproved product. So Delta-8 is still essentially marijuana in another form. So is it legal? Although some states have legalized the medicinal and recreational use of marijuana, it remains a controlled substance by the federal government. However, the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, commonly called the Farm Bill, legalized the growth and manufacture of hemp, including products derived from the plant. This is where the legality of Delta-8 becomes confusing. While it can be derived from hemp, it is hard to tell if it was created that way or by modifying cannabidiol, CBD, I did not pronounce that right, which would make the substance illegal. The legal uncertainty around Delta-8 underscores that this could be as dangerous as other forms of THC, but illegal or not, when it comes to putting something in your body, when you want to make sure that it's actually safe first. So you're having sort of like those same questions that you see with the kratom, where it's in this like weird gray area where, well, see, it's different from the kratom because it's not like there's a form of kratom already on the market and it's like, okay, well, this kratom, we know more about it, so we're going to legalize it. And then it's this other artificial form of kratom. Whereas this, it's like, we know more about Delta-9 than we do about the Delta-8, but because the Delta-8 is so like modified, it can't be under the same regulations as the Delta-9. And that's where you run into problems because even with the Delta-8 not being proven to help with anything like even medicinally, you have it being pushed in stores that can't sell the Delta-9. So you're still like reaching those targets. And I know in our area, it was even being sold to underage people who wouldn't have even been able to get the Delta-9. So it's a little scary because regulations aren't there yet just because it is a different substance. So we're going to move on to, is it safe? Which, there we go. Did I already read this first thing? No. So even though Delta-8 is supposedly milder than Delta-9, this refers to the mind-altering effects, not the overall safety of the substance. For decades, cigarette companies have marketed their products by using names like lights or milds, but this did not make them safer or less addictive. While Delta-8 is thought to be less potent, this doesn't make it a safer alternative to other cannabinoids. The risk for addiction and abuse remains the same. And like many addictive substances, the potential for shoddy or dangerous production methods is there too. Isolating, reducing, or modifying chemical compounds, the methods used to produce Delta-8 out of hemp or CBD, can create unintended byproducts. In the wrong hands, these potentially dangerous byproducts can remain, meaning you never know what you may actually be using. While the FDA does approve the use of some CBD products to treat specific conditions under the direction of a doctor, makers and sellers of Delta-8 products don't go through the same rigorous testing and research. This means there are no rules or oversight as to how the product is made or marketed, leaving the possibility for users to get way more than they bargained for. Don't let the name fool you either. Beep, beep. Delta-8 is still essentially marijuana in another form. We know that marijuana can be addictive, and because Delta-8 impacts the brain the same way, it has the same potential for addiction as any other form. So how are we feeling right now, Phaedra, before we get into the effects of this substance?
Well, so far, I think this is a pretty good pamphlet. It's providing some good information. The graphics are nice. They have chosen some nice pictures. I like that they show the structure of the molecule. That's nice. So you can see it's got some hydroxyl groups. So let's see. Yep, you've got some hydroxyl groups there. So I think it does a good job of explaining the dangers of Delta 8 and how it's kind of a gray area when it comes to its legality. So I feel so far it's doing a pretty good job.
Something that I've noticed as compared to like the Kratom pamphlet is the Kratom definitely tries to scare you a little bit, especially with the weird font you can't read. It's supposed to be like, whoa, drugs aren't cool. But this is a lot more factual. You know, it kind of, just going back to the pamphlet real quick, like I said, I have physical copies. You know, it's like, and those who make the choice to experiment with it play a dangerous game with their health, their future, or even their lives. Which like it's like into those scare tactics. So something that I've also realized getting into this stuff is like you put a lot of blame on people who experiment with these things, who just might not be aware of them. It's just a lot of negative connotation thrown on those who are in the experiencing addiction. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly. Whereas this is a lot more factual.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So short-term effects of Delta 8. Whee! Okay. Oh, while potency is debated, the fact is clear that Delta 8 is still a cannabinoid and can have the same mind-altering effects as its close cousin Delta 9 THC, including slowed motor skills, dizziness, disorientation, anxiety, impaired short-term memory, reduced reasoning skills, increased appetite, and delusions or hallucinations, which that can't be fun. When smoked, Delta 8 introduces the same cancer-causing chemicals like tar into the body in addition to physical side effects, which is the same. Huh. So, like, do they mean the same as, like, Delta 9?
That is, do they mean cigarettes and Delta 9, or do they mean if you take it in a different form rather than smoking it?
The same cancer.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think they mean Delta 9, because if you look over to the column to the left, they say the same mind altering effects as its close cousin Delta 9. So I think they are referring to Delta 9 there, but that should be clear.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting. I didn't know that. When I was in school, so like last year, high school, I'm in college now. When I was in high school, I had a teacher who was telling us that like there were no negative effects to smoking weed, especially like regularly, which I knew that wasn't correct, but I just say that to point out like people don't always know that there are possible ramifications to smoking that. And I did not know that cancer causing chemicals like tar could be introduced to the body through the Delta 9. That is concerning. I'm surprised I don't hear that talked about more.
What kind of teacher said that?
It was a psychology unit.
Oh.
So let me see. In addition to physical side effects like cough, dry or bloodshot eyes, nausea, dry mouth, increased heart rate and blood pressure, respiratory infections in heavy users, sore throat, and weakening of the immune system. If the mental and physical effects weren't bad enough, there are also legal, academic, and professional consequences of using Delta 8, including possible arrest due to unknown legality. Oh, okay. Lower grades or poor school performance, failed drug screens leading to inability to participate in sports or extracurriculars, as well as decreased employment opportunities. So, okay, well, I guess the target audience for this one is reaching out to students as well as those who are old enough to be like full-time in the workforce. So that's interesting. Long-term effects of Delta 8. As with marijuana in general, it's tough to know what the long-term effects of using Delta 8 are because research is there we go. Limited. Since most marijuana users often abuse other harmful substances like alcohol, tobacco, and or narcotics, it can be hard to tell how using marijuana can impact the body over a lifetime. Because Delta-8 is relatively new and still very unknown, how it affects users in the long term is just as unknown. What we do know for certain is that the potential for addiction is present no matter how Delta-8 is described or marketed. The bottom line is that without greater research, no one can truly say whether it is safe in the long term or not. So, what did I see? So, okay, yeah, you hear it a lot, but marijuana can be a gateway drug. And I find it's something that should have been obvious, I guess, but it's something that I never thought of because how have we already been doing this for 30 minutes? I just got I don't know if you can see that, but it says the meeting will end in 10 minutes. We can split it into two parts. But since most marijuana users often abuse, which I don't like that diction, but again, other harmful substances, because again, like I said, it's a gateway. I didn't realize that it would impede investigating how that would impact your body.
I don't think I realized that either. That is interesting.
But moving on, don't be a lab rat. There's still too much we don't know about Delta-8, its legality, its potency, its long-term effects, and much more. The best way to keep yourself healthy and safe is to stay drug-free. There's no need to experiment with your health and well-being by testing the effects of Delta-8. When it comes to weed light, we're still too in the dark to know the real danger. See, even in that paragraph, that little don't be a lab rat section, it feels so much friendlier in a good way, not in a negative way. Because I keep mentioning the kratom packet, but with the kratom, it's scaring me. And I feel like that's not the most effective way to go to that route. But even with this, it feels like, hey, don't experiment with your health and not oh, you're an idiot if you do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because the kratom packet, especially when you compare it to this one, it is abundantly clear than the scare tactics that the makers of the kratom packet used. But maybe in the 10 years since it was published, they've learned, hey, these scare tactics don't work very well. Let's try to be a bit softer with what we're saying and try not to scare them as much, but rather inform. So hopefully we'll see that in the other packets as well if they're newer.
Mm-hmm. So I have what we do know for certain is that little quote on the bottom is that the potential for addiction is present no matter how Delta-8 is described or marketed. So who is this? Does it say who it was published by? Let me see. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, this is also Education Specialty Publishing. So that's interesting. They have resources. Like I said, resources are important. So you could go to DEA Prevention or Centers for Disease Control, which both very reputable sources. So I think I'm a bigger fan of the Delta-8 packet than I was about the kratom. So just being by the same publisher and everything, I feel like there was a big advancement, and that 10 years, I feel like they definitely changed with the times, which is good, except for the substance misuse. That is still kind of a problem, but I didn't even see it as much in here. So how do we feel about that? Oh, okay. Well, I do think it's interesting that they still mention the arrest and they include that picture. So they are still trying to scare you a little bit, but I feel like it's so much better than it was in the other one. So what are we thinking, Phaedra, if you had to rate this out of 10?
I'd say maybe somewhere between an 8 and an 8.5, because it does provide some good information. It relied less on scare tactics compared to the kratom packet, but still they do mention substance abuse, which we don't know how integrated that is now since this packet is from last year, and maybe things have changed a little bit since then. But still, I feel like if they were to redo this pamphlet and replace some of the language, then it would be better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. So me and Phaedra will be back in a second. I have to make a new Zoom meeting because I don't pay for Pro. I'm sorry, Zoom. So we will cover the vaping and e-cigarettes and the social hosting in part 2. So we'll figure that out. Okay. So let me see. Stop recording.